Okay, I apologize for not making a video yesterday, but today we're going to be talking about The Departed. This was a movie recommendation by Logan Wentland, so thank you very much for the movie suggestion here. The Departed. So, 2006, a bit of an older movie. We got an American crime thriller film. Huge names. I'm actually surprised that I haven't seen this movie before myself. Granted, like I've actually watched majority of these types of movies, I would say between the early 2000s till today. A lot of the movies that have influence of things like in regards to cops or crime. This was kind of like the movie genre that I was really most interested in. It's of course it has a lot of action, but you would describe it more as a thriller movie, really. And so you have these huge names, right? You have Alec Baldwin, you have Jack Nicholson, Matt Damon, Leo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt. Like the actual cast of the movie is absolutely crazy. Now, as to speak what I was expecting going into it, I was not thinking I was going to enjoy it as much as I did. Now, I will admit it was a bit of a longer film, and that's not to say anything bad about it at all. But it's quite interesting when you see the actual breakdown of these characters, and as they're investigating said crime boss, right? And they're undergoing these different investigations, and you have this character who plays as Billy Costigan, who's Leonardo DiCaprio. He's the deep undercover cop, right? And so his whole shtick is that he has to try to infiltrate this mob. And if he infiltrates the mob, he basically doesn't have an identity to himself outside of what he does for work. So one thing that I really like about Billy's character is kind of like the expression that he goes through with the psychiatrist character who plays as kind of like his girlfriend, I guess romantic interest in the movie. She has like these scenes with him and he's not even allowed to really express himself. And it's so frustrating because speaking as someone who has had a lot of mental health issues in the past and still struggles with some today, seeing his character basically go from somebody that was, he's kicked out of the academy, right? And the premise is that nobody knows who he is and he can't be himself anywhere. He can't trust anybody because he's so deep is that his identity is so important that anything he does in relation to himself could risk everybody and put everything up there for grabs, right? So Billy's character you kind of relate to on a personal level because he's really young in this film, right? Like he's actually really young, and the undercover stuff that he does is it's so much fun. The scenes that you see him interacting. There was another scene that a lot of people don't pick up on in the movie where he tells the psychiatrist lady, like, you don't have cats. I like that. And actually, for those that don't know, I believe that's a reference to the fact that he's a rat, right? Kind of, rats and cats kind of like play a little fun little shtick to the movie. Matt Damon's character. It's been a while since I've watched a movie where I wanted to punch someone in the face several times throughout the scene. And what's so interesting about Matt Damon versus Leo's character, right, in this film, is you have a bad guy who is pretending to be good, and you have a good guy who's pretending to be bad. And as the movie plays out, you see the perspective of both of these guys trying to live kind of like this double life, where Matt Damon, who plays the character of Sullivan, he's presenting himself as a sergeant, as like a really good dude, and you see through all the BS because you're the audience member, you're the one spectating what's actually happening. But from the other characters in the film's POV, you have Sullivan, who's like an awesome dude. He's an upright standing citizen. He's a cop and somebody of very high standing, somebody that is is going to do the right thing, and somebody that's trying to, of course, take down the mob boss, right? So, which is Frank Costello in this film. Speaking of which, though, Jack Nicholson plays a absolutely killer role. And I actually found out upon basic research, I had to do a little bit more prep for this one, which is why I didn't want to rush it out like yesterday. There was a lot of improv scenes in this movie, to be quite frank with you. I didn't expect that. Like, and Nicholson's acting, it blows it out of the water, right? Like, it gives you that contrast of like, oh, is this dude like freaking crazy or is he secretly like a genius? And every scene with him, you feel the intensity of each moment. Another fun character that I really like too was Mark Wahlberg. Dude, I swear, man, his character in every movie he plays as Sergeant Dignam in this movie, but every character that he plays, he's just so loud and he's so irritable, and it's a character that you just really don't like throughout the entire movie, but kind of for the opposite reason of Matt Damon, right? Matt Damon's character, who plays as Sullivan again, is kind of a character who fronts himself as a really great guy, and everybody accepts him to be a really great guy. But on the inside, on the DL, he's actually a bit of an asshole. So he might be the type of person that everybody praises to his face and talks shit behind his back. Whereas you have Sergeant Dingham, who I feel like is the opposite. Everybody clowns on the dude. Everybody hates him because he's a real piece of work in this movie, based on the interactions that he has with the characters. And there's a scene where Alec Baldwin is like, "I promise, guys, he's really nice. Don't judge him on this meeting," and everybody just cracks up laughing because they know it's not true. But that being said, Mark Wahlberg's character actually ends up being one of the more morally just characters, morally correct characters throughout the film, despite him not really having that ability to express himself in a polite and respectful manner. So you could call him blunt, you could call him too truthful, too honest, whatever it may be, but he is a bit of a piece of work. Yeah, so one thing I didn't like, but actually I can't say that I didn't like in the context of the movie, but I just didn't like the actual character, was the character that plays as Madden. I'm trying to figure if that's how you pronounce her name, but she's the psychologist that's romantically involved with both Costigan and Sullivan, and you're just like, dude, you're a therapist, right? And you're involved with these two characters, and then you're cheating on the character. It's like, how are you seeing both someone in your workspace and then you're seeing someone that is already struggling with these issues? She kind of like, it shows me like what's kind of wrong and what you should not do if you end up being a therapist or in your line of work. I ultimately, like, she does these things where she like assigns him drugs even though she knows he's like a bit of an addict, and then like she gets involved with him and entwined with him, knowing that this is not like something that is good for the characters, right? And so ultimately, like, in that elevator scene though, where she ends up like getting the dude's number, that was kind of cool. I like that. Like, it was a fun introduction scene of the character where they get to flirt with each other, get to meet, and they get to mingle a little bit. I thought that was okay. I thought that was kind of fun. Yeah, so, and we get to see like the significance of a lot of things. One thing that I thought was probably the most important part of this movie, and maybe the message that it speaks, at least to me, maybe not necessarily to everyone else, but you have these two characters, right? You have Costigan and you have Sullivan, who one is still alive at the end of the movie, and the other one is dead. And everyone mourns the person that was dead, knowing that he was given like the Medal of, not the Medal of Honor, it was some type of award that was given by the characters, right? And you know that he's dead because he tried to rat everybody. He tried to do the right thing and turn the character in, right? He's trying to turn in Matt Damon's character to the police, but he dies because ultimately these dudes are all freaking corrupt. And the elevator scene in and of itself is a whole nother topic, right? Where you do not expect Leo DiCaprio's character to just get popped off in the elevator. Movies tend to be very predictable. So in regards to how that specific scene played out, I would have to say that it's very strong, because it catches you off guard completely. You're just like thrown for a loop and you don't really know how to take it, because the actual scene that follows, right? You then have a second mole that's revealed, and then you have Matt Damon's character who's on the brink of a mental breakdown, right? So Matt Damon goes through these different changes as Sullivan, right? So in the first scene, he goes through, I guess you could call it like the stages of grief. He's at first like trying to plead, and then he's trying to negotiate, and then he's trying to threaten, trying to get his way with violence. He even tries to get Costigan's character, his friend, to shoot him, right, without even explaining anything. That cop ends up dying, of course. And then in the elevator scene itself, he's like, go ahead, do it anyway, turn me in. You're going to see everyone's going to side with me. And then when he actually realizes what's going to happen because of all the evidence that was submitted, the dude just breaks down and he's like, please just kill me. And that scene where before the elevator door actually opens, I find to be more of a emotional twist than the actual scene where you get popped. When he gets popped, it's more of like, oh, wow. But the actual scene where you see his character break down, you know that the mask has been revealed, that Matt Damon's character, even though he's portrayed to be such a nice guy for the entire movie, or at least he tries to put on that front and that mask, you realize that it's really not ultimately there anymore, right? And he realizes it too, that nobody loves him and nobody likes him, and he ends up getting the I believe he ends up getting the therapist pregnant as well. So it's like, dude, you now have a kid and she doesn't even like you, and she has your child. But to that point too, the ending of the movie, you have the messages that it expresses, which is justice and revenge, or I guess you could call it like fate versus free will. So your characters, right? You think you're in control, but you're actually doomed, and you think that you have a level of power that you really don't. So those are kind of more of the important messages I think that the film speaks, is that everybody tries to escape what they're destined to be or what they're destined to fall through. And everyone thinks that they have a certain power, a certain degree to themselves. Everyone thinks that they're more important than maybe they actually are in the grand scheme of everything that goes on. And at the end of the day, you realize that even though you think you have power and control, you're really just a small speck of it all, right? And I think that speaks even further for the specific scene where Leo DiCaprio, who is a major actor even during this time of the years, just gets capped and killed instantly. And you realize how precious life actually is, and you realize how important everything is. And if you don't if you take things for granted and you don't actually do, what you need to be doing, and it just ends. There's no escape there, right? But the corruption plot line itself, I think, was just more of like a side piece, even though that's kind of like the main message of the movie. There's not really any justice for every character, because even at the end, you have Mark Wahlberg, who just executes Matt Damon's character. And a lot of people don't understand the importance of the last couple of minutes of the movie, where you have Matt Damon's character going through his little apartment, right? And everybody knows that apartment is too rich for him, as he's the only guy staying there. It's like for a whole family. He tries to pet this little dog, and this old lady takes the dog away and looks at him with disgust. And the reason why is because he's a working class man. He's a working class man living in a multi-million-dollar apartment building, right? So everybody that is with him doesn't respect him. He tries to sit himself on a seat in which he is not. And everybody sees through that. And even the people that he is trying to be like don't respect him. So the scene where he doesn't even get to pet the dog, is because the lady does not like working class people, or specifically cops in this example, because they know, or maybe they think they know, he's corrupt, because how can a normal cop afford a freaking apartment like that? It's because he's dirty, right? So, yeah, unfortunately, the good guy of this film, which is played again by Costigan, dies, while Sullivan gets, he doesn't get his actual justice. Now, him getting executed at the end is cool, and it is kind of a satisfying ending. I personally, of course, would have rather preferred him take it all in and go to jail and actually like get his 1-2 from that. Overall, I think that to me would have been a better ending, because I actually thought that elevator scene where you see Matt Damon's character about to frickin' break down, like screaming and crying, I thought that was really interesting. Like the emotional intensity and rawity of that, you just feel it. Like, and overall, I would say that his acting performance has to be the best in the actual movie. In terms of rating, I have to give it, I would probably say an 8. I know it might be higher in a lot of people's minds, but what I would say that it did good in is I would consider this movie kind of like a master in what it plays, which is kind of like the tragedy deception kind of shtick, right? The ending reinforces kind of like what's wrong with the world overall, if you will, right? And the complexity of each character, I think overall it has really good and consistent writing. So if you guys were to ask me to give it a rating, that's what I would leave it as. But hopefully you guys enjoyed kind of like my feedback on this film. Again, thank you, Logan, for the movie recommendation. If you guys have a recommendation you want me to check out, do let me know, because I'm going to try to do several of these a week. It might not be daily. I know I missed one yesterday. Daily is kind of a hard commitment, but I'm going to try to make these as consistent as possible, because I do enjoy doing them, and I do enjoy talking about movies and film. So if you guys enjoy me talking about it and you want to see a movie recommendation, do let me know, and I'll probably grab it up and give it a watch. But as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Take care and God bless. Have a good day.